We must inquire into that.
Oh, dear me. Oh, dear me.
Allow me, sir, if I speak to her. Ethel, it's all right, all right. Do you hear me? Pull yourself together.
It'll be all right now, Mrs. Rogers. It'll be all right. Just a nasty turn.
Did I faint, sir?
Yes.
It was the voice. The awful
Where's the
voice.
brandy?
Like a
Bring it.
judgment.
Thank you. Here, drink this, Mrs. Rogers.
Thank you. I'll be all right. Just took a nasty turn.
Of course it was a nasty turn. It gave me a turn, too. Wicked lie it was. I'd like to know who in their right mind.
Who was it that put the record on? Was it you, Rogers?
I was just following orders, sir, that's all.
Whose orders?
By Mr. Owens.
Let me get this quite clear. Mr. Owens' orders were what exactly?
I was to put the record on the record player in the study. I was finding a drawer in there, and I would start with that one. I just thought it was to give you all some music.
A very remarkable story.
It's the truth, sir. Before heaven, it's the truth. I didn't know what it was, not for a moment. It had a name on it. I thought it was just a piece of music.
Is there a title?
Yes, sir. It's entitled Swan Song.
Ah, preposterous. This whole thing is preposterous. Going about slinging accusations like this. Something ought to be done about it. This Owen fellow, whoever he
That's
is.
just it. Who is he?
That is what we must go into very carefully. I should suggest that you get your wife to bed, Rogers, then come back here.
Yes, sir.
I'll give you a hand.
Will she be all right, Doctor?
Yes, she'll be quite all right.
Well, I don't know about you, sir, but I feel I need another drink.
I agree.
I'll give.
Preposterous. This whole thing.
Whiskey for you, sir, Lord.
I should like a glass of water, please.
Guess I'll have a little whiskey too.
Given her a sedative, she'll be all right now.
Now then, Doctor, you'll want to drink it for all this.
No, thank you. I never touch it.
So you said. You have this one, General.
No.
Now then, Rogers, we must get to the bottom of this. Tell us what you know about Mr. Owen.
He owns the place, sir.
I am aware of that fact. What I want you to tell me is what you yourself know about the man.
I really can't say, sir. You see, I've never seen him.
What?
What do you mean you've never seen him?
We've been here just under a week, sir, my wife and I. We were engaged through letter at the registry office, the Regina in Plymouth.
It's a high-class firm. We can check on that.
Have you got that letter?
The letter engaging us. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Go on with your story.
We arrived here like the letter said, on the 4th. Everything was in order, and plenty of food and stock, and everything was very nice. Just needed dusting and that.
What next?
Nothing, sir. Well, that is, we received orders to prepare the rooms for a house party, 8th, and then yesterday by the morning post I received another letter saying that Mr. and Mrs. Owen might be detained. And if so, we were to do the best we could, and it gave instructions about dinner and putting on the record. Here it is, sir.
Give that to me. We might test it for fingerprints, but it's been handled too much.
Quite a little detective.
Got some fancy Christian names, hasn't it? Oh, like Norman Owen. What a mouthful.
I am obliged to you, Mr. Marston. You have drawn my attention to a curious and suggestive point. I think the time has come for all of us to pool our information. I think it would be well for all of us to come forward with all the information they have on our unknown host. We are all his guests. I think it would be profitable if each of us were to explain exactly how that came about.
There's something very peculiar about all this. I received a letter with a signature that was not easy to read. It purported to be from a woman I had met at a summer resort 2 or 3 years ago. I took the name to be Ogden. I'm quite certain that I have never met nor become friendly with anyone of the name of Owen.
Have you got that letter, Miss Brent?
Yes, I'll fetch it for you.
Miss Claythorne.
I never actually met Mrs. Owen. I wanted a holiday post, so I applied to a secretarial agency. Miss Grenfell's in New York. I was offered this post and accepted.
You were never interviewed by your prospective employer?
No. Here's the letter.
Soldier Island, Nags Head, North Carolina. I have received your name from Miss Grenfell's agency. I understand that she knows you personally. I shall be glad to pay you the salary you ask and shall expect you to take up your duties on August 8th. I have enclosed $15 for expenses. Yours truly, Una Nancy Owen. Mr. Marston.
Don't actually know the Owens. Got word from a pal of mine, Badger Burke. Told me to roll up here. Surprised me a bit because I had an idea the old devil had gone to Houston. I ain't got the wire.
Dr. Armstrong?
I think under the circumstances, I may admit that my visit here was purely professional. Mr. Owen wrote me saying that he was worried about his wife's health, her nerves, to be precise. He wanted to report without her being alarmed, and he therefore suggested that my visit be that of an ordinary guest.
You had no previous acquaintance with the family?
None.
And yet you had no hesitation in obeying the summons.
A colleague of mine was mentioned, and a very handsome fee was suggested. I was due a holiday anyway.
Dear Miss Brent, I do hope you remember me. We were together at Belhaven Guest House in August some years ago, and we seem to have so much in common. I am starting a guest house of my own on an island off the coast of Nags Head. I think there is really an opening for a place with good old southern cooking and a nice old-fashioned type of person. None of this nudity and records half the night. I shall be very glad if you could see your way to spending your summer holiday on Soldier Island. As my guest, of course, yours sincerely, U.N. Yes, the signature is slightly ambiguous.
I like the nudity.
Here is my own letter from an old friend of mine, Constance Holmington. She writes to me in her usual vague and incoherent way, urging me to join her here and refers to her host and hostess in the vaguest of terms.
Look here, I just thought...
In a minute.
But I...
We will take things one at a time, if you don't mind, Captain Lombard. Now, General McKenzie.
I got a letter from Mr. Owen. I assumed I must have met him sometime at the club. He mentioned some old cronies of mine were to be here. He hoped I'd excuse the informal invitation. I haven't kept the letter, I'm afraid.
Thank you. And you, Captain Lombard.
Same sort of thing, invitation mentioning mutual friends, but I haven't kept the letter either.
We have all just had a somewhat disturbing experience. An apparently disembodied voice spoke to us all, by name, uttering certain definite accusations. We'll deal with those accusations in a minute. At the moment, I'm more interested in a minor point. Amongst the names received was that of Wilma H. Bloor. But, as far as we know, there is no one named Bloor amongst us. The name of Davis was not mentioned. What have you to say about that, Miss Davis?
Cat's out of the bag, it seems. Suppose I'd better admit my name isn't Davis.
My word!
You are Wilma H. Bloor?
That's right.
I will add something to that. Not only are you here under a false name, Miss Bloor, but I've noticed this evening that you're a first-class liar. You claim to have come from Natal, South Africa. I know South Africa quite well, and I'm prepared to swear that you have never set foot there in your entire life.
You've got me wrong. I'm ex-NYPD.
Oh, a copper.
I've got my credentials and I can prove it. I run a detective agency in Plymouth, and I was put on to this job.
By whom?
Mr. Owen sent a very nice money order for expenses and said I should join the house party posing as a guest. He also sent a list of your names and said I was to keep an eye on you all.
Any reason given?
Said Mrs. Owen had got some valuable jewels. Mrs. Owen, my foot, I don't believe there's any such person.
Your conclusions are, I think, justified. Ulick Norman Owen. Una Nancy Owen. Each time, that is to say, U-N Owen. Or, by a slight stretch of fancy, unknown.
But it's fantastic. It's mad.
Oh yes, I've no doubt in my own mind that we have been invited here by a madman. Probably by a dangerous homicidal lunatic.
Oh, my God.
Whoever it is who has enticed us here has taken the trouble to find out a great deal about us. A very great deal. And Out of that knowledge concerning this, he has made certain definite accusations.
Well, it's all very good to make accusations.
I wish to say this. Our unknown friend accuses me of the murder of one Edward Seaton. I remember Seaton perfectly well. He came up before me for trial in June 1935. He was charged with the murder of an elderly woman. He was very ably defended and made a good impression on the jury at the witness stand. However, on the evidence, he was certainly guilty. I summed up accordingly, and the jury brought in a verdict of guilty and passing sentence of death. I fully concurred with this verdict. The appeal was lodged on grounds of misdirection. The appeal was dismissed, and the man was duly executed. I wish to say this before you all, that my conscience is perfectly clear on the matter. I did my duty, and nothing more. I passed sentence on a rightly convicted murderer.
Did you know Seaton at all? I mean, personally.
I knew nothing of Seaton previous to the trial.
The judge is lying. I swear he's lying. Fellow's a madman. Absolute madman. Let's really leave this sort of thing unanswered. However, I feel I ought to say no truth. No truth at all in this Arthur Richmond business. He was one of my soldiers. I sent him on reconnaissance in 1917. He was killed. Also, like to say, resent very much this slur on my wife. Been dead a long time. Best wife in the world, absolutely. Caesar's wife.
I've just been thinking. John and Lucy Collins. Must have been a couple of kids I ran over near Austin. Mixing that up.
For them or for you?
Well, I was thinking for me. But you're right. Well, damn bad luck for them, too. Of course, it was pure accident. They came out of some potty. I had my license suspended for years. Beastly dude.
This speeding's all wrong. All wrong. It's young men like you who are...
They couldn't help it. It was just an accident.
Might I say a word, sir?
Go ahead, Rogers.
There was a mention, sir, of me and of Mrs. Rogers and of Miss Jennifer Brady, but there isn't a word of truth in it. We were with Miss Brady when she died. She was always in poor health, sir, always from the moment we came to her. There was a storm the night she died. We couldn't get to her, couldn't get the doctor to her. The telephone was out of order. I went for him, sir, on foot, but he got there too late. We've done everything possible for her, sir. Devoted to who we were. Anyone will tell you the same. There was never a word said against us, never a word.
Came to a nice little something at her death, I suppose, didn't you?
Miss Brady left us a legacy in recognition of our faithful service. Why not, I'd like to know.
What about yourself, Miss Bloor?
What about me?
Well, your name was on the list.
I know. Lender, you mean? That was the London and Commercial Bank robbery.
Ah, I remember the name, though the case didn't come before me at the time. Linder was convicted on your evidence. You were the policeman in charge of the case.
I was.
Linder got penal servitude for life and died in Blackwell a year later. He was a delicate man.
He was a crook. It was him put the night watchman out. Case was clear from the start.
You were complimented, I believe, on your able handling of the case.
I got my promotion. I was only doing my duty.
Convenient word. Duty. What about you, Doctor?
I can't say really. What was the name at all? Claws, Cloves, Clees, Clays? I really don't remember it or it being connected with death in any way. I really can't say. Of course, it was so long ago. It might possibly have been one of my operation cases in hospital. They come so late, so many of them. And if the patient dies, then it's always the surgeon's fault.
Oh, and it's easier to give up surgery and take up nerve cases. Some, you know, give up drink.
You have no right to insinuate that I've ever touched alcohol.
My dear fellow, I never said that you did, but after all, Mr. Unknown Owen is the one who knows all the facts.
Miss Claythorne.
His nurse recovered as Peter Hamilton. We were in Cornwall for the summer, and he was forbidden to swim out too far. One day when my attention was distracted, he started off. As soon as I saw what had happened, I swam after him. But I got there too late.
Was there an investigation?
Yes, I was exonerated by the coroner, and his mother didn't blame me either.
Thank you. Miss Brent,
I have nothing to say.
nothing at all?
Nothing.
You reserve your defense?
There is no question of defense. I have always acted according to the dictates of my conscience.
What a law-abiding lot we seem to be. Myself excepted.
We are waiting for your story, Captain Lombard.
I haven't got a story.
What do you mean?
I'm sorry to disappoint all of you. It's just that I plead guilty. Oh, it's perfectly true. I left all those men alone in the bush. Matter of self-preservation?
You abandoned your men.
Not quite the act of a proper gentleman, I'm afraid, but after all, self-preservation is a man's first duty. And natives don't mind dying, you know. They don't look about it as Americans do.
Our investigation rests there. Now, Rogers, who else is there on this island besides ourselves and you and your wife?
Nobody, sir. Nobody at all.
You're sure of that?
Quite sure, sir.
Thank you. Oh, don't go yet, Rogers. I am not yet clear as to the purpose of our unknown host in getting us to assemble here, but, in my opinion, he's not sane in the accepted sense of the word. He may be dangerous. In my opinion, it would be well for us to leave this island as soon as possible. I suggest we leave here tonight.
I'm afraid, sir, that there's no boat on the island.
No boat at all?
No, sir.
Why don't you telephone the mainland, then?
There's no telephone.
Who the hell doesn't keep a telephone on an island?
Nipcott comes over every morning and brings the milk and the bread and the mail and the papers and takes the orders.
Whole thing's like a detective story. Positively thrilling. I'm all for crime. Here's to
Here, I'll take the glass
Arston. Oh my God, he's dead. Dead.
What do you mean dead? The fellow just choked and died.
Choked, all right. You can say he died of asphyxiation right enough.
Never knew a man could die like that. Just a choking fit.
In the middle of life, we are in death.
Doesn't die of a mere choking fit, General Mackenzie. Marston's death isn't what we call natural.
Was there something in the whiskey?
Yes, cyanide. This fellow, potassium cyanide, is practiced pretty well instantaneously.
Well, then he must have put the stuff in the glass himself.
Suicide?
Yes.
He wouldn't be the one to commit suicide. He was alive. He was enjoying himself.
Look! One of the soldiers off the mantelpiece. It's broken.
no sign of that boat yet.
It's very early still.
I know, still Narracott brings the milk and the bread and all that. Should have thought she'd got here before this. There's no sign of any breakfast. Where's that fellow Rogers?
Let's not worry about breakfast just yet.
How's the weather look?
Narracott said we were due for dirty weather. Shouldn't wonder if she wasn't right.
I wish that boat would come. What is the use of not keeping a boat on the island?
There's no proper harbor. If the wind comes to blow from the southeast, the boat would get dashed to pieces against the rocks.
You mean we should be cut off from the land?
Yes, but you needn't worry. The sea's only a bit choppy.
I think the pleasures of living on an island are rather overrated.
I wonder if that boat is coming. It's annoying the way the house is built, slapped up against the cliff, so you can't see the mainland until you've climbed all the way to the top. Shall we go up again?
No good, Doctor. A watched pot never boils. Besides, there wasn't a sign of a boat putting out when we were up there just now.
What can this woman, Narracott, be doing?
They're all like that in Nag's Head. Never hurry themselves.
Where is Rogers?
If you ask me, Rogers was pretty badly rattled last night.
No, ghastly, the whole thing.
I take an even bet he and his wife did the old lady in.
You really think so?
I never saw a man more scared. Guilty as hell, I should say.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Suppose he's hopped it.
Rogers? But there isn't any way he could. There's no boat on the island. You have just said so.
Yes, but I've been thinking we've only his word for that. What if there is one and he's nipped off in it first thing?
Oh no. He wouldn't be allowed to leave the island.
Sleep well, General?
I dream. Yes, I dream.
I don't wonder at that.
I dreamed of Leslie. My wife, you know.
I wish Narracott would come.
Who is Narracott?
The lady who brought us over yesterday?
Was it only yesterday?
Yeah, I feel like that too. Fatty records, suicides, about all a girl can stand. I won't be sorry to see the back of Soldier Island, I give you my word.
So you don't understand. How strange.
I don't like the look of them.
Reckon young Marston's suicide must have been a pretty bad shock to him. He looks years older.
Where is that poor young fellow now?
In the study. Put him there myself.
Doctor, I suppose it was suicide then?
What else could it be?
I don't know, but suicide?
You know, I had a pretty funny feeling in the night. This Mr. Unknown Owen, what if he's on the island? Rogers may not know, or he may have told him to say so. It's a pretty nasty thought, isn't it?
But is there any way that anyone could have tampered with Marston's drink without the rest of us seeing
It was sitting there, and there. Anybody could have slipped a dollop of cyanide in it if they wanted to.
But that still would have been seen by all of us, because all of those locations were right in the center of our vision. It was... Here you are, sir. I'm looking all over the place for you. Could you come have a look at my wife? Absolutely. Is she under the weather? She... Don't leave without me.
I wish that boat would get here. I hate this place.
Yes, I think the sooner we can get in touch with the police, the better.
Please.
The police must be notified in the case of a suicide, you know, Miss Claythorne.
Yes, of course.
What's going on in there? There's no sign of any breakfast.
Are you hungry, General? Feeling like breakfast?
Leslie! Leslie, my
No,
dear!
I'm Vera Claythorne.
Of course. I'm sorry, I mistook you for my wife.
Oh,
I'm looking for her, you see.
I thought she was dead long ago.
Yes, I thought so too. But she's here, on the island.
Good morning.
Good morning, Captain Lombard.
Good morning. Seem to have overslept myself. Oh, is the boat here yet?
No.
Bit late, isn't it?
Yes.
Good morning. Well, you and I could have had a swim before breakfast. Too bad all this.
It's too bad you overslept yourself.
You must have pretty good nerves to sleep like that.
Nothing makes me lose my sleep.
Didn't dream of African natives by any chance, did you?
No, did you dream of convicts in Blackwell?
Look here, Captain Lombard, I don't think that's funny.
Look here, you started it. I'm hungry. What's for breakfast?
Whole domestic staff seems to have gone on strike.
Well, we can always forage for ourselves.
That's strange.
What is?
Remember how we found one of these little fellows smashed last night?
Yes, that ought to leave 9.
That ought to leave 9. I was certain that there were 10 when we arrived here.
Well,
There's only 8.
probably only 9 to begin with. We just thought there were 10 because of the rhyme.
Yes, probably.
What's the matter, Armstrong?
Mrs. Rogers is dead.
No, how?
I was in her sleep. Rogers thought she was still under the influence of the sleeping draught. I gave her it. He came down, he lit the fire, lit this room. She hadn't come down yet, so he went up and was alive by the look of her, went looking for me. She's been dead about 5 hours, I'd say.
Was it her heart?
Impossible to say. It may have been.
Pretty bad shock last night.
Yeah.
She might have been poisoned, I suppose, Doctor.
It is perfectly possible.
With the same stuff as young Marston?
No, not cyanide. It would have been a hypnotic, narcotic, one of the barbiturates,
Gave her
perhaps, or
some
chloral.
sleeping powders last night, didn't you?
Yes, I gave her a mild dose of luminol.
Didn't give her too much, did you?
I most certainly did not. What do you mean by that?
No offense, I just thought perhaps that she had a weak
The
heart.
amount I gave her could not have hurt anyone.
So then what exactly did happen?
It's impossible to say without an autopsy.
If, for instance, this death had occurred in the case of one of your private patients, what would have been your procedure then?
Without more exact knowledge of the woman's state of health, I certainly